another cracking season of great guests coming out, and I'm starting off with a hometown legend from Peebles, Scottish record holder for the butterfly, Commonwealth bronze medalist. Like I said, he's Borders made, so he knows his stuff. He's living in the capital now, but we can't hold that against him. Gregor Swinney, welcome to the Refuse to Fail podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm grand. I'm glad to have you on. It's been a long time coming, considering we've been living the best part of 15 miles apart for about 10 years.
I know. Because I remember, I think you were either 1 or 2 years above me at
I think I was two.
Peebles High School. So I remember, like, when you asked me to be on the podcast, I remember you from high school. But yeah, it was a long time ago now, I think.
I remember watching you in the pool, and I thought, I was like, God, he's like awfully familiar. And then I did like the old Instagram search, and I was like, oh, we follow each other. That'll be why it's awfully familiar.
Yeah.
You've gone one way and I've gone the other way. You've done much better than me, though.
Nah, it's just I don't know. Swimming's like it is hard to get to the top, but I feel quite lucky in Scotland that there's not been many like butterflyers that are like top quality. So I don't know. I think I'm selling myself a bit short there, but yeah.
I think you're definitely selling yourself a bit short, because not only have you picked one of the hardest sports in swimming, you thought I'll choose the hardest stroke as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a reason behind that? Or did you just like, oh, I'm just going to make this as challenging as possible?
Nah, it was like the one, like when I was younger, it was the one stroke that I was quite good at, and then I just really liked doing it. And it's not as hard as everyone thinks. Like, I do short events, so I just have to sprint, and it's actually like not that bad. If you're doing something longer, then yeah, it is the hardest stroke by far. But I don't do that, so I don't have to really worry about that. Yeah.
Oh man, I've got a section lined up yesterday to explain the body mechanics, because when I look at how to perform the butterfly stroke, it is the most confusing thing, because it looks like your body's trying to work against itself, but you somehow manage to fly through it. But before that, we've got to get started with everybody's favorite section, the usual quick fires. So Gregor, this is just easy, just the first one that comes to your head out of the two options, and we just go from there. And if you answer anything weirdly, I'm sure the boys or any other belts in the Uni of Edinburgh swim team will give you a bit of grief when they listen back to it. But nice, easy one to get you started. Would you rather have a tea or a coffee?
Coffee.
Right. Are you more likely to go for a night out or a night in?
Night in.
Right. If you had to get rid of one tomorrow that would never be on the planet again, would you get rid of swimming, the sport, or would you get rid of dogs?
Swimming. I can't get rid of dogs.
I think everybody except two have said their own sports. That shows how much dogs are loved. Right. If you're on Netflix just looking to chill out after training, are you more likely to go for a series or a movie?
Series.
Right. I don't know, that one's not going to work. We'll skip that one. I was going to ask you if you'd like to play sport in the heat or the rain, but you're in a pool, so it's probably going to be wet.
Yeah.
In a car, if you're traveling to a meet or something, are you more likely to go on a playlist or a radio?
Playlist.
Right. Next one. Are socks and sliders acceptable? Yes or no?
I'm going to say it depends what age you are. I'm going to say no, but I'll let like older generations get away with it.
Oh, you never done that walk to like the Tesco and you forgot something for tea, like an ingredient? You're like, I'm just going to chuck the socks and sliders on.
I don't actually own any. I'll be honest with you. I don't, which is probably weird since I'm in a poolside all the time. But yeah, I don't own any.
Are you a Crocs man? I feel like you must be a Crocs.
When I was younger, yeah.
Mate, best purchase of 2023 so far for me, a pair of Crocs.
Yeah, I've not had them in years. I might have to look at getting one.
I'm telling you, mate, that would change your life. Like, if weirdly, I think they're the most practical shoe I've ever had as well. Like, you know, when the ice was like last week, only shoes I didn't slip in were the Crocs. So I was like, I was basically working on commission for them. I was just advertising them to everybody. Right. If you're trying to get something sorted out with either the boys or the missus trying to get something, are you more likely just to FaceTime or text when you're trying to organise like a group chat?
FaceTime.
I like that. Man, that's practical, time efficient. Right. Popcorn, sweet or solid if you're going to the movies?
Sweet.
Are you more active on Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say, if you could join one sort of universe, would it be Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Correct answer. What's your go-to Disney film?
Mulan, probably.
Great choice. Is that just for the song?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, all the songs in it are quite good, I think.
That's the best. I'll have to mind me when we finish this interview. I found for my gym playlist, I've got a heavy metal version of "Make a Man Out of You" by
Oh,
this other
really?
band, and it's
I didn't listen
incredible.
to
It actually is incredible. Do you have a favorite quote that you like to live by?
that. Yeah, it's a really like um. Listen, I've got like two. One's from Kung Fu Panda. I can't remember what it is exactly, but it's when Poe's dad's um or not when Poe like gets the dragon scroll and he opens it and he realizes that there's no secret ingredient. Like you just have to believe in yourself. And I feel like that's quite good for sport. And the other one is, I mean, I try to live by it, but I'm not very good at it. It's the axe forgets and the tree remembers, and that's like an old Zimbabwean proverb that basically means like if you're kind of like horrible to somebody, they are more likely or they will remember it, whereas you just forget it and shrug it off as that, and then later down the line, if you need something from them, they're going to remember what you did to them, and yeah,
I like
that's
that.
all. Try to be
Two
kind to
very good
people.
ones. I know exactly which one you mean for the Kung Fu Panda one as well, so don't worry.
Yeah,
But no, I like the Zimbabwean one as well. The axe forgets, but
yeah.
the tree remembers.
I just saw it and it hit me quite hard, and I thought it was quite good. So yeah.
I do like that one. And then the last one of the quickfire section. What's your go-to fast food place? Like when you're on a cheat day, what's your go-to like takeaway, like your drive-through type takeaway?
I don't know. I don't really go to like McDonald's or that, but I'd probably get like a Chinese or a pizza or something.
That's
I,
fair. I
yeah, I
respect that.
wouldn't go to like McDonald's, Burger King or something like
There you go. That's the athlete mentality there. That's why we're on two different levels right now. I'm not going
that.
right now. So there's the quick fire section rattled off. Told you it was nice and straightforward. Couple of questions that I'll start asking people that I really like. You're still quite young into your career, obviously, but do you have a favorite piece of memorabilia from your sports? Whether it's like a jersey, whether it's not necessarily a medal, but something you don't normally take, like a souvenir from an event. Like have you sort of not pinched something, but have you thought I'm taking that with me from like the Commonwealth Games or something?
Yeah. So one bit of kit that we got for the Commonwealth Games, so it was Nike that did all the kit for us, and we got this like quarter zip. That is it's so nice. And after it, actually, they were selling off the kit, so I bought one from my mum, dad, and girlfriend, and they loved them as well. Um, but the like bit of like memorabilia from the Commonwealth Games is probably the like your athlete accreditation. So it's like you get a special lanyard and then a pass. And I don't know, that just when I got given that, that was kind of like the moment that I was like, okay, this is real. Like I'm actually here. Um, so that's probably quite special. Yeah,
I love it when people get, because it's amazing what I find is the weird things people pick up. Like there was one girl was telling me last season she picked up something. It gives you an answer, even if it's just like like a name above the door where it's like this is your room, and she's like, oh, I'm
yeah.
keeping that just so I've got that memory. Um, and then so second to add to that, is there a piece of memorabilia you're particularly looking to add to your collection? Like, are you wanting something from an event or a meet where you can go like this was me, like this cements my memory. Like I'll always have this one, like almost like a portal. Like I'll have this one item that just sends me back all these memories.
An Olympic medal or um, just some bit of a kit from going to the Olympics. I think
I was
that'll
gonna say
be
that probably an Olympic
next
medal
thing
would
on
probably
the
get a
list.
lot of memories. But yeah, I love that you have that drive already of just like I'm not here to just enjoy it. Like I've got that my sights set on that goal.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was like after the Commonwealth Games, I was like, yeah, that was really good, but I want to do that again. I want to go to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh well, we're going to get into that. I want to hear all about how we're planning to go to that. But first of all, as we talked about, you've just joined the Edinburgh Uni swim team. How does that feel when you get these sort of accreditations, when you're getting like an establishment like Edinburgh Uni being like, we want you to be part of the team, and not only because you're there as a student, but it's like, no, you're part of the team as a competitor. How was that for you, like that whole process?
Um, it was kind of like completely, so like swimming for the uni is completely different to I was at. obviously I grew up in Peebles, so I was at Peebles Swimming Club, and then I moved to Glasgow for uni, so I was at City Glasgow swim team, and those like Peebles and Glasgow are both like club, regular grassroots swimming
Mm.
clubs. Edinburgh Uni is like way more professional, and you feel it like there you're with other athletes that are like the same level, if not better than you. So just that, like that's been the biggest difference, is seeing like how professional an environment it actually is, which is obviously like what you want to further your career and stuff. Same with like the gym at the Pleasance, like that got done up over the summer, and it's just like the nicest gym I've ever been in. So stuff like that, it's really cool.
Not to crap on the People's Hydro, but I imagine there's quite a difference between those two gyms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because even like try thinking Peebles, what's the other gym, like the Gates or something, or like, I never even went to any gyms in Peebles. Yeah, but
I just raided the free hotel gym where I was working, so that's all I had from my experience. That, and we had the rugby chicken hut on the top, and that
oh
building was
yeah.
derelict. I don't know how that passed any health and safety inspection.
No, I don't know. Still there
So
though, isn't it?
uh, in terms of there's still a building there, but like I don't know if it's
Yeah,
like structurally sound to that.
yeah.
So you touched nicely on it there. So we're going to go right back to the start because it's just a good way to find, because a lot of my listeners, we're in the borders, and as you'll know, as I knew, it was very much a rugby or a football
Mm-hmm.
for the male side of sort of sport when you're growing up. So swimming, mountain bike had a bit of prevalence, but I think that's just because where we were. But
Yeah.
so when you're getting into swimming, like, is there a lot of distractions to try to take you away from it? Because obviously, like, as a swimmer, you're very naturally athletic, but when you're younger, like for example, like the PE teachers in ours will probably look at you going, "You're tall, you're athletic, you can run, you're not afraid to commit to something. Like, let's get you in the forwards in a rugby pitch." Did you have this sort of like stave it, like you had to sort of stave it off a bit?
Yeah, so the other like sport that I did like properly was football.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came basically I got moved, my swimming times got moved, so I couldn't go to foot, and I had to make the choice between football or swimming, and I chose swimming. And then going to high school, like it was PO's high school was very much like boys literally only do rugby. There's like no other, well, when we were there was like no, it felt like there was no other sport you were doing. It was just rugby. So I felt kind of like not, I suppose like overlooked. Like they didn't, it kind of felt like they didn't really care as much. They didn't really want anything to do with you unless you wanted to do rugby or hockey. Um, so yeah, it was quite difficult. And then obviously, I don't know, sort of, swimming has that reputation for not being like, some people don't think it's a real sport. Um, and I used to get made fun of all the time for being in speedos and swimming with other guys. Like people thought it was a bit funny, and yeah, I don't think like you just that age, like kids don't understand the amount of work that goes into, because swimming. I remember a stat that got read to me, like the just because obviously when you're in the water, there's no like impact. So
Mm-hmm.
football, the work to rest ratio I think is 1 to 4, whereas in swimming it's 1 to 1. So you can work for way longer and harder than you can in other sports where you've got like impact on your knees, ankles, whatever. But yeah, it was all about rugby when I was at school. I tried it, but I didn't really fancy it much. I'll be honest.
No, so what was so you pretty much made the decision to focus on the swimming rather than the football as you went into the first year of high school. How does that then change your, like, what did a weekly schedule look like for you in the first couple of years of high school in terms of training alongside? So your normal school day was what, 8:30 by the time you've got there till about 3:45, 4 o'clock, whatever it was. How many times are you training a week? Like you said, you're doing 1-to-1 ratios of training to rest.
So I would do 8 sessions. So
Eight
I do,
sessions over 7 days.
yeah. But we always got Sunday off, so it was over 6 really.
All right.
So it was like every morning apart from Wednesday morning, I would go down to Selkirk. So waking up at 4:15 to go and
Christ.
train from 5:30 till 7:30, or like quarter to 8.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the car, have breakfast in the car, come straight up, because it was like a 35-40 minute drive down to Selkirk. So we get
It's not
back up, and I'd
close
get,
then, no.
Yeah, I'd just go straight to school, and then after school, I think it was Monday, Thursday, Friday, I would have training after school as well.
So you'd be back down to Selkirk after school.
Nah, the night sessions were in Peebles, but it was just because like the Borders doesn't really have like what you'd call like an elite swim team. So we had
Right.
this Australian guy came in years ago, and he started like it was called the Borders Elite Swim Team. So it was like kids from clubs from all over the Borders. He would like invite them to it, and at the start it used to be he would come round the clubs, and then if he saw somebody that he liked or he thought had potential, he'd be like, "I want you to come and train with us in the morning." And that's kind of how I got introduced into like the competitive world of swimming.
Okay.
So yeah, that was quite cool. But yeah,
So eight.
it was
So,
fine. Like first couple of years of high school, like I'd say first to third, maybe even fourth year. But I remember sitting once you start getting double periods of like maths, history, like try to sit through them. Like I would fall asleep in class sometimes just because I'd been up since 4:15. And when you've got a really boring class going on, it's just yeah, not fun.
you think they'd get some sort of like? You think you get some sort of like respite for it? They'd be like, "Oh, you don't have to take as many subjects and just recuperate sleep." Or
Yeah, nah, it was like I don't know, I don't know.
I can't comprehend that. So you had 8 sessions over 6 days. Was that split like an even? So is it, like you were saying, people don't understand what it takes to be like a swimmer, but I was looking at it doing the research for this, and it's like there's so much. Like you said, everybody just associates you're just in a pool, like doing lengths, like
Yeah.
endless lengths after that. But it's like there's so much gym work. There's so much like plyometrics and things like that. So like, how was that breakdown of those 8 sessions? Was it like 6 swim, 2 gym, or
So that was all swimming. So that was 8 2-hour swim sessions.
right?
And I didn't do any gym at that age. It's only when I moved to Glasgow that I started. So Glasgow, I would do 9 2-hour pool sessions, and then 2 to 3 hour, hour and a half gym sessions. And then if you had like any other like stretching, yoga, whatever,
Mhm.
after. So like it wasn't that bad at high school just because I didn't have the extra. Like now I'm doing like Pilates classes and stuff. So you had now there's like a lot extra to do with the training. So obviously the hours in the week are way more than it was growing up. But I feel like when you're at school, I don't think you could make. And the old school style of coaching was like you got in, you worked as hard as you could, did as many meters as you could. Whereas
Mhm.
now it's very much like they want to like so like other kids that were that age, they'll now do like 5 or 6 sessions a week just because the coaching mentality's changed, and you know that you don't have to do as many. They value quality over quantity now. Whereas when I was swimming, it was like it was just hard all the time, or that's what it felt like anyway.
So there's a bit more like body management in it now. Just like they're trying to
Yeah,
look at
because
longevity. Oh, okay.
I think they've realised that you're going to burn out by the time you get to my age. Like if you train that, there's a lot of kids that like when I was growing up were like exceptional age group swimmers, and
Mhm.
then they could never make the jump from age group to I don't know what you'd call it, like open or like professional because their bodies were just so done by that point that there was
Mhm.
like nothing left to give almost.
That's crazy. Actually, that's weird how that story because I've heard so many sports say that there's so many naturally talented sports people or people who wanted to just really, but they just could not make that next step because of the dedication, but also the toll that they'd put on their bodies getting to be an elite at, like you say, like an age grade level, because they'd
Yeah,
almost done that extra to get to there, not realizing that they'd then have to take it up to that adult level.
yeah.
And you'd
And I
like
think that's
done.
why I was quite lucky because I was never like I was not good like growing up. I was really, really bad. And I
I
only
assume,
kind of
assume you
got
must have been all right.
yeah, I was
I
okay.
imagine your
Like I
level of bad
wasn't
and my level of bad are two very different things.
yeah. I mean I was all right, but like when I go to like schools or clubs or that now, I always say like if I can do it, literally anybody can do it because I didn't get good until I was like 22, and
Mm.
that's when I was like, all right, okay, I've got an actual chance of going somewhere here, and that's when I started to train. Like I thought more about it, like I took it way more seriously, and that was at 22. And now I'm kind of like, oh, if I'd only, done it when I was like 18, like just when I first went to Glasgow, because the first like 4 years, I only really did swimming because I loved it, and that's the most important thing. Like if you love your sport, that's if you fall out of love with the sport, then there's no point doing it anymore. I think, because it becomes a chore rather than something like you want to go to. So yeah, it's very like unusual, I think, for swimmers now to like. It's usually always kids that have been at like World Junior Championships, European Junior Championships that'll then make the jump. It's like kind of rare that you'll get somebody that's like me that's literally been a nobody for their whole career, and then all of a sudden when I would have been 24 when I made my first like international event. So yeah, I was quite lucky that I didn't really experience that like burnout or whatever you want to call it.
That's really interesting because obviously I've changed the name of this podcast to Refuse to Fail, and that's because when I was looking at this, I can't remember. It's like you said with your proverb earlier. I randomly stumbled across this one day, and I can't remember where I found it or where I said it, and I don't want to Google it again and misquote somebody else in case it is a different one. But so what I heard was everybody today wants to succeed, so wanting to succeed is not enough. You have to refuse to fail.
Yeah.
Which is and that sounds like your mentality, and it sounds like that's what will happen when you really. So would you say that was your like almost refused to fail moment when you got to that 18-20 mark and you just really focused and went, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly. Like I'm not doing it just to take part.
Yeah.
And then like, how does that, because like that's a real personal, like you can't have a coach tell you that. And it sort of sits there, that's a personal thing. It's like, how did that, whether it was over a week or a month, or it was, even if it's just like a 30-minute, you were just having a hot shower one day and like you had end up having one of those showers where you think about how to solve the world. Like how was that moment for you when you had that refuse to fail moment and you just said, I'm really going to have this to go? And then like you said, within 2 years, you've gone from, I'm swimming at the club, I'm doing well, but I'm just kind of going through the motions. And now it's like, now I'm at the Commonwealth Games competing.
So I don't know, like, I always had the dream of like representing Scotland at something. I always wanted to win a medal at a major meet. Like that was a dream. And then so our season, like the swimming season, you call it, starts like September to August. So like September of the season of the Commonwealth Games, that's when I was like, okay, like I went to my coach and said, this is what I want to do. I want to be on that team. And then I don't think I ever really believed it. And then it was after Christmas in January, like I was dealing with like sports psychologists and things, and I would say to them like, they were like, oh, but what happened? Because as psychologists are, they want to prepare so that if you don't go, that how are you going to handle that? And I just said, that is not an option. Like for me, not going isn't an option. Like there isn't, failure isn't a thing here. And I don't know how I came to that. I think it's because I set myself the ultimatum that I said, if I don't make Commonwealth Games, I'm going to stop swimming, because it's getting to the point where there's no money in it, so I can't, warrant doing something that, like, at the end of the day, you need to pay your bills and you need to survive. Like, and I can't do swimming and do that. So I think I was like kind of setting that ultimatum that if I don't go, I'm going to stop. And in my heart, I really, really didn't want to stop. So I think that kind of pushed me on. But then, like, I don't know if you want me to go into the story about how I qualified to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear it.
So basically, they set the standards for qualifying for these meets, like British swimming and Scottish swimming, really hard, so that basically not many people are going to do it, so that they can then handpick who they want to go. So my event, the 50 fly, which was what I was trying to qualify for, was the only event that you needed to break a Scottish record to qualify in. So it was like they set the time quicker than anyone had ever been in Scottish history. So instantly I'm like, well, how, like, I'm already, like, that's a big
you have to be the best to ever do it to go. Yeah.
Because I need, like, the time was 23:95 and no Scottish person had ever been under 24. So I was like, right, well, I'm going to have to do something special to do this. And then I ended up going 23:97, so I was 2/100ths off the time that I needed to go. And I remember, like, I told my coach, I was like, I don't care if I don't go now, because like that I could not have done any better. Like that, to me, I was so proud of myself, and that's the only time
Mm-hmm.
in my whole career that I have ever been like proud of a race that I've done, which sounds kind of silly because I've done hundreds and hundreds of races. But that was the only one that I was like, you know what, that was actual good. And then I got really ill that night after it and found out that I had COVID. So
Oh
I
no.
had COVID when I swam, and they brought out this policy basically that because they realised people weren't swimming as well as they thought they were gonna at the qualifying meet, so
Mm-hmm.
British champs. So if you sent in evidence to say you'd had COVID in the last year or had to isolate, they would take that into account when doing their nominations. So I obviously was like, look, I've had it whilst I've done the thing. That's got to have some impact, because I
Yeah.
literally couldn't get out of bed the next day. And they were like, no, that's, you've not had to like hinder your training in the past year, so it doesn't count. So they released the like nominations that they sent off to the selection committee for Commonwealth Games, and I saw like it was basically ranked, so like your percentage under the time, the higher up the list you were.
Right.
And there was people like, I don't want to say anything bad about these people because they deserve to be there, but there was people that I was theoretically ranked higher than, but they got put on the list above me because they put in their COVID case and mine didn't count.
Uh,
So when I saw that list, I was like, I'm not going. There's no way they're going to pick me, because they had their team, and then there was like five of us that were like kind of the extra spaces, and the
like
top two
reserve
were,
almost type thing.
yeah. So I was
Right.
third on that list, but again, like I was pretty annoyed at that. So they took the
Mm-hmm.
top two on that list, and I got the phone call to say, look, we're sorry, you're not going. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, what do I do now? And I kind of just set myself, I was like, I'm going to stop, but I want to prove them wrong. So we had a British summer meet roughly a couple of
Yeah.
weeks before Commonwealth Games, and I was targeting that. I was like, I'm going to prove to them why I should be on that team. I want to go a time that would win me a medal at the Commonwealth Games. And then like 3 weeks before the games, I got a phone call, or 4 weeks before, to say, oh, look, you're actually, oh, we've got extra spaces, we're going to take you. So that kind of like emotional roller coaster of being told no, like one of the worst feelings ever. Realizing that your dreams just been crushed, to then go in, it was really quite surreal. Um, and it was quite nice that a lot of the like everyone on the swim team that went were like, they were all really annoyed that I wasn't on the team, because I broke a Scottish record and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to go. So I think they all thought it was like the other three on the list got to go as well. So it was almost, I don't know, like a bit of justice or something. I felt like, okay, um,
So,
I
so
do.
at that point, is there 8 of you going to the Commonwealth Games? But
No, there was
not all of you are going to
20.
swim.
There was 22 going. So I think there
Mhm.
was. So
Oh, I
yeah,
meant just for like your event. So how many would be going to represent Scotland? Like, do you take only people that are going to compete, or do you take people as like reserve?
oh no, so I was the only one. So I was the only one for my event, but then once you go, they can put you in for other events.
Right. Okay.
So basically, if I wasn't going, they weren't going to put. Actually, I think I was the only Scot that did the 50 fly. So yeah, I was. But if I didn't go, then they wouldn't put anyone in for that event,
Right. Okay.
which seems kind of silly.
Mhm.
So
Sorry.
yeah,
So
they just,
I was just trying to understand how many people are currently at like in line for the Commonwealth Games at this point. So we'll take it back. You're just now at you're at this British meet that you targeted originally,
yeah.
and you're still so you're still gunning for this, whether I'm now going or not. Even though you've now said I am, are you? I'm still going to try
Oh no, I
get
didn't.
aim for this one. Or,
I didn't do that. I did the. It was like Scottish Open. Like
Mhm.
two days after I got told I was going, I did the Scottish Open, and then I broke the Scottish record in my 50 fly again by like one
Mhm.
100th there, and I also went quite a big PB on the 100. So that was like a month out, and then we have a taper, so like we'll ease off and get like properly rested, so that we're going to swim the fastest we've ever swam. And seeing how fast I was going then, like I was so confident going into Commonwealth Games. Like I was like the most confident I've ever been that I could go and do like lifetime bests.
Wow.
So that's how I got there. So after being told no, that's why I thought like it was quite the refuse to fail thing is quite good in my case, because it just wasn't an option. And then I got to, then it was how do you deal with being told you've failed basically.
Mhm.
I thought I was able to handle it quite well. Probably could have done better, but
I
yeah,
don't know, going all the way to the Commonwealth Games and getting yourself a bronze medal is a pretty good way to say I'm not giving up on this. That's Greg. That is ridiculously inspiring. That as well, especially because a lot of people talk about that ultimately, like, oh, if I'm not doing it, I'm going to give up, but they never really sort of give up. But it sounded like you, because like you said, like people have got bills to pay, and the money from swimming isn't exactly life changing. It's not footballer's salary. It's not
yeah,
these F1 salaries. You have to work alongside it while you're coming up. Um, so now I do want to talk about I want to go back and talk about uni lifestyle because, as you said, you went to Glasgow and joined that city swimming team. But while we're on the topic and in the story of this podcast, we've just got to the Commonwealth Games. Let's talk about the Commonwealth Games because they are. It's like behind the Olympics. It's probably the biggest event on the calendar for yourself. Maybe not in terms of competition, like you might have times where the competition's a bit more fierce, but definitely in terms of media attention, the Commonwealth Games just gets that extra coverage. It gets the BBC coverage. It takes over the channel for almost 3 or 4 weeks, doesn't it? And so what's it like when you're doing all this stuff and like you're probably noticing more cameras around? You're probably noticing like a few more interviews, especially like you said, if you're the only Scottish person competing in the 50-meter fly. We're one of the most patriotic countries in the world. Like anything somebody Scottish, like look at Andy Murray. He's playing at like 6 a.m. in Australia, and you've got people taking photos of the telly and they've not watched tennis since Wimbledon in 2010 or something. But so how does this feel? Like you've obviously got people like Claire Baldwin getting these interviews. How does the Commonwealth atmosphere compare to everyday life type thing?
um, it was definitely different. Like I didn't get much media when I was there. I got interviewed once by BBC Scotland
Mm-hmm.
after my 50 fly heats. And then I said I had after the semi final I had a few choice words, and I don't think I was going to get any more media after that. But I didn't. Yeah, it was like the biggest event I've ever been at, and it was like I still don't think I really took in the scale of it. Like it didn't really. I don't know. It kind of just felt like I was meant to be there, which I don't want to come across like big headed or that, but I think I was. I don't know if I was just like so like focused or like okay, I've got a job to do here. I didn't really notice that much until after it. And it was like a like look, I didn't take the time to enjoy it whilst I was there. Like
Mm-hmm.
that if anyone could learn anything from this, it'd be like if you get somewhere like that, just enjoy it. Because now this is like kind of the I don't know, like the dark side or sport that
Mm-hmm.
people don't get to see is that for me that whole experience is negative. Like it's whilst it was amazing and I loved it, I still come away with like negative feelings from it because I didn't do as well as I wanted. And with the medal, I didn't do the final, so I
Mm-hmm.
got the medal because I got the team into the final. So there was four of us that did the heats, and then they swapped all of us for the final. So as far as I know, the other boys were buzzing, and I just felt so guilty because I didn't feel like I deserved the medal, and I
Mm-hmm.
still don't feel like I deserve it. And like it took me like 5 weeks after it. Like I was just beating myself up constantly, being like, "You're a failure. Like you don't deserve to have this medal." Like everyone keeps coming up to you and congratulating you and being like, "Oh, it's amazing what you've done," and that. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it myself. I'm like, if only they knew how I really feel, that they'd think, "Oh no, he's just a fraud," and that's what it felt like. I felt like a fraud, which is obviously quite hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised, but but when I've been to a couple of primary schools. Like I went back to Kingsland to talk to them, and I'd never said any of that whilst I was there. I was just saying how good it was, and but yeah, that's the harsh reality of sports. Sometimes is that people can look at sports figures and think, "Wow, they've got an amazing life, and they've done so well." When you're as much a perfectionist as I am, it's nothing is good enough. It's like unless I've had a perfect race, I'm not going to be happy with it, and that's something that I'm really trying to work on, is being okay with not failure, but being okay with not being perfect, which is really difficult.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt the podcast. This is something I wanted to tell you about, and it's something I wanted to explain before I just go around throwing it everywhere, because this is something that was quite difficult for me to decide to do. It took a lot of deliberation and a lot of discussion with friends and family. I have now created an option where you can tip the podcast or you can reward the podcast if you feel the podcast deserves it. There is an option down below where I went on the internet, I found this website that wants to reward content.
Yeah.
Wow. I suppose that shows that elite mentality you have to be at the very top of your game. Like you say, it's like perfect is where I'm constantly aiming for, and like 99%, I still don't feel is good enough because I'm striving for that 100%. But like you said, it's a thing you have to work on. But I wanted to touch on the final, like you said, for the medal, because as you said, they subbed the team out, which I didn't know was a thing in swimming. I thought there was a case if there was injury or something, and I don't want to pry. I don't want to pry in if it's something, because I know you obviously, like, you still have a lot of emotion about that, and like you said, it took you a long time to sort of accept the fact that you contributed to that medal. It still is your medal. You might have not been in the final heat, but it was like, why? I suppose, why did the substitution happen? Because obviously, because in my mind, the way I look at it is, you've got the team to the final. You've gone through the heats. Why something? I read somewhere online. I think there was a few guys last races. So was there a bit of like a send off thing for them in that, or was it a case of, I don't know. Can you explain it in any way you can with the?
So I don't want to say we got really lucky, but there was enough teams to have two heats. Like there was too many teams to just have one heat, and if there was only going to be one heat, they would just do a straight final. And then on the day, two teams pulled out. So Singapore, which were contenders for the bronze, they pulled out. What the South African team turned up, but one of them missed the bus to the pool. So we were in the call room waiting to go out. South Africa were in the lane next to us, I think, and one of them wasn't there, and we were like, "Come on, this." And then so they got kicked out, and then we were like, "Oh, here we've actually got a real chance at getting this bronze now." And then in the heat after us, Canada, who I'm sure probably would have beaten us for the bronze, got disqualified. So now it's just England and Australia for gold, silver, and then between us and Wales for the bronze. And there was only enough teams for one heat after all those teams didn't turn up. So we were like, oh, here, we can do this. And I used up so much energy beating myself up after my 50 fly semi-final, like mentally, that I didn't realize how much of a toll that took on like your physical energy, because I just felt sluggish. I was not swimming great. And after the heats, I went round to my coach and I was like, you're not putting me in the final. I'm not being the reason that the team's gonna lose that medal. And that's what I said to them. And then eventually, like, yeah, they put Duncan Scott, who's the best Scottish swimmer of all time, on the fly. And I think it was just they do that just to maximise the one. It's so that the boys that are going to do the final get a rest, because they don't want them to swim more than they have to. And someone like Duncan, who's doing a lot of races anyway, they don't want him doing any more than he has to. So that's why we did the heats. And it's also just to like maximize, like if you're getting a medal, you'd rather have 8 boys get a medal than only 4. So it was just to give like other people a chance at getting one, I think, and also to protect the people that your faster people that are going to do the final. And I think it was always the plan that I was going to do the final, like, because I was the fastest fly swimmer that they had there.
Mhm.
And then when I think it was, they just realised that we can get a bronze here, so we're going to put Duncan, who's more reliable, he is quicker than me as well. And I was like totally happy with that decision because I
Mhm.
didn't want to be the reason that the team lost the bronze. Which don't know if that's cowardice or whatever, but yeah, I think I didn't have anything left to give at the end of the week. I think I'd spent all my energy um, being really annoyed at myself for the 50 because I didn't make the final.
Mhm.
Um, that was all I had left. So
Wow.
yeah,
What's interesting is because you said that at the end there, it's like you were like, oh, I don't know if that's cowardice, but from the way I look at it, I don't know this is because what I mean from myself as an external, because I'm not in the swimming world to the extent of yourself, or like I said, like Claire Balding, somebody like that earlier, somebody who watches it, everything. But what we associate is normally quite an individual sport. Obviously, we understand you have the medleys, you have your team races. What you did there was actually you kind of put the team first. You went, look, I know I'm not the best I could be as a competitor here, but I want the team to do well. So what you did is basically you took yourself out of the spotlight to go, I know we as a team have a better chance of winning. And then what also pointed out to me to the success there is, like you said, it's like England and Australia are going for gold. Then it's Scotland versus Wales for bronze. Like that also then encapsulates how much talent there is around you on like an almost weekly basis or meet basis, because you've got obviously when we talk about the Olympics, it stops being England, Scotland, Wales,
yeah,
and it comes into GB. So you've now got three whole other pools of people you're competing against as well. So I think almost what you said there of I completely agree with what the other people said of you deserve the medal because fair enough we've rested Duncan Scott for all these other races because he's churning out lengths in the pool for the Commonwealth, but like that means nothing if the team around him can't get him to the platform he needs to get to.
yeah,
So I think you really do deserve that medal, and I think it's something you really should take pride in. And then, but what I think is really what strikes me is talking to you because obviously I'm only 26, and even versus you're only now 24 at this point in the Commonwealth Games, 25 now. Like the emotional intelligence you almost have, and like the sporting brain intelligence you have to identify. I'm not running at 100%. Whether this is like you say physically because I've had COVID or I'm not ill, or mentally because I've just like you said, like I know I could be better than I could be, so therefore I'm annoyed at that because that's just natural human reaction of like even if it's down to your homework, like
yeah,
my favorite subject was maths and I've shafted my test, so it's not gone well. But um, yeah, I think that's really interesting how you've come across that whole thing and how you've spoke about it so maturely, and I think it really is eye opening to like a lot of people will take lessons from that of somebody who is thinking we have these situations where it's all about us. And like I said at the very beginning of this sort of rather long-winded analysis of what you've just said, the team aspect that you put into a traditionally individual sport, because I mean the example most people recognise with us here is Michael Phelps is Michael Phelps is Michael Phelps. He's very associated as Michael Phelps of Team USA, but he is part of the US swim team.
mm-hmm.
So I think it's really incredible what you did. And then if we want to go back, we'll talk about your individual 50, the 50 fly. How was that going up? Was the lead into that? So the swimming in the beginning of the Commonwealth, or was that a bit
Yeah,
more? Yeah. So
yeah. So
there's still that buzz and everything's going in. Run us through the 50, like the heats and the semi.
50 was day one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
50 heats, good, broke the Scottish record. Um,
Again.
but I was like, because I could see the boy next to me. The boy next to me, Cody Simpson. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's
Yeah,
basically
I remember watching it. Yeah, yeah.
he went away to America to be a pop star for 10 years and then came back. So I was like, I'm not letting this pop star beat me. And you see him on Insta. He's got like 5 million followers on Instagram. Like he's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was ahead of him. And I think I can't try to remember who was in the heat. I think it was Jacob Peters who won the heat comfortably. But I was going to come second, and I want to say like 23-7, something like that. Like that's what I felt I could have done. But I mucked up the
Mm-hmm.
finish. So although I was like buzzing that PB, I was still like, you know what, I can do. Like I shouldn't have been fourth there. I can
Mm-hmm.
do better. So again, I was like, right, I just need to make it. I know that if I do the same again, just make the finish better, then I've got a really good chance of being in the final. And going back to the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games 4 years ago, I think 23.9 got you maybe a bronze or maybe fourth in the final of 50 fly there. The gold was won in 23.5. To make the final, you had to go 23.5 this year, which shows like how much the standard had come on. Again, like in the final, there ended up being four or five guys that were in the World Championship final like a couple of months before. So that's like really like world class level. And then I was so confident going into this, and watching my teammate Katie Shanahan, like I was in the call room waiting to come out to race, and Katie Shanahan, who I swam with in Glasgow, won a bronze medal out of nowhere in the 400 IM, and I was almost in tears like in the call room watching that, and I got so hyped up. And I think I just if you get too hyped and excited, you end up like rushing your stroke, and I did that. And going into the finish, like I mucked it up so badly. Like I'm the worst finish I've ever done in my life, and it's one of those ones where like the last two strokes, I knew I'd mucked it up, and I was like, I couldn't do anything about it. And in my head, before I even hit the wall, I was like, I've ruined this. Like I've ruined it so badly. Ended up going like 0.3 slower than I did in the heats. Came last in that semi-final or something, and I was gutted. Like I was so gutted, and I didn't get media because I went round and they were, oh, how was that? And I was like, that was fucking shite. And then I didn't get spoken to again after that because I was so angry. And then I just beat myself up because I was like, although I probably wouldn't have made the final, I feel I could have done better than I. I didn't give myself
a better showing on type thing,
Yeah, and then we've got these like data scientists that like once you get to this level, like they analyze everything about your race. And like my first 15 meters when I broke the Scottish record to qualify, we'll say, I was 0.4 or 0.5 quicker to 15 then than I was at the Commonwealth Games.
Wow.
And in my head, I'm like, I went the same time or a wee bit faster. In my head, like, that's a massive. I could have been in the final if I'd done the same dive then. So that was another thing that got me. I was like, what if I don't know if it was the occasion got to me or I was not focused, but yeah, I feel like I could have done way better than I did. So yeah, that was really hard to deal with, and I don't think I dealt with it at all. And it's one of those, you always get told to, if you have a bad swim, put it behind you because you can't do anything about it. I definitely didn't do that. And that's one thing, if anyone can learn from that, like you can't do anything about the past or stuff that's been. You just got to move on and focus on the next job at hand. But yeah, so that was why that was. Oh, I can't describe the feeling of coming into that wall knowing that you'd like the biggest moment of your life and you've messed it up. Oh, it was awful. It's quite funny thinking about it now, but yeah, that was so bad.
Wow. I think what I find really interesting about it, and I want to next talk about the actual stroke itself, the butterfly, because it's like I said in the very beginning, it's interesting how the body mechanics work, but it's amazing how much control and knowledge you have of your own swim that you were able, while going through, like, because if I was competing in the Commonwealth Games, the only thing I'd be thinking is go like the clappers. Like I'm not thinking about anything else. It's just I've got to get through this pool as quick as I can and like hit that wall. But the control you must have and like your actual awareness of what's going on in your body to identify with, but like you said, you're on your final two strokes or whatever it was, and you're like, I've chucked this. So when you're training the butterfly, so first of all, for those that don't know, the butterfly is the stroke that looks like it's actually inhuman to do. Gregor's actually almost replicating like a dolphin with how much of his body is actually coming out of the water as he goes. Can you just sort of explain the butterfly to us, like as a simple mechanic, like what your legs are doing, how the start is, how your arms actually move? Because it's not a case of you do the same stroke every time. There's a different stroke between. So you do one where your head rarely comes out of the water, and then the second one your more upper body comes out of the water.
just depends like when you breathe. So obviously you lift your head to breathe, but you want to like try and keep your chin like on the surface of the water and like push your head forward because you don't
Right.
want to come up too much. Um, and then the legs, like you keep your feet together and you're kind of like, it's called dolphin kick when you're grown up because it's kind of like a dolphin, that motion, and it flies like all about rhythm. Like if you don't get into your, it's kind of hard to describe, but like you, when you do it, like you've got a rhythm that feels like natural and good
Right.
for you. And if you don't find that,
So is it
it just,
rhythm more than speed in the butterfly? Like it's more beneficial to have that rhythm, like you're saying, rather than just I'm gonna like windmill my arms as fast as humanly possible to pull myself through this water.
yeah, yeah, you need to, it's having like that little bit of like control. Like obviously you're wanting to go on the 50, you like, that's usually all I think about is just going in and because I actually found out last year as well. I got diagnosed with ADHD last year that I've had
Oh,
since I was a kid. But so
wow.
like for me, like there's just so much going on that very rarely I'm thinking about what I'm actually doing.
Hmm.
So usually for me, it's that I've got one plan and that plan is go, and that's what happens. Like I'll just spin, and that's when you can tell that I'm not done as well because my arms will just be spinning. You're not like pulling as much water.
Hmm.
But yeah, it flies the other, like the stroke that's got like the most, I call it like dead time. So like when you're bringing your arms like over the water, you're not kicking either. So
Okay.
you need so much momentum to carry you and keep your speed going because you're not doing anything in that time.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's why effort wise it's harder because there is so much dead time in it, and also doing that motion with your shoulders like at full extension and like kind of having them out. Like if you held weights like at the end of your arms and stretched them out, like that's going to be really hard after even like 10-20 seconds. um so I think it's just the way you move your arms makes it very hard on the shoulders. But yeah, I don't know why like that. I knew I'd messed up the finish because that's the only time I've ever like properly been like thinking about what I'm doing in a
Hmm.
race. But that was weird. But
So what gave it away, or what gave it away to yourself that you'd messed up? Did you just feel your rhythm was off straight away, and you're just like I've just not? Did you like I've just not hit the water at that magic spot that made it feel comfortable, or?
nah, so you count like you'll when you're coming into the wall, you'll know how many strokes you've got left to like hit the wall on a full stroke.
Hmm.
Because that's obviously the fastest way. You don't want to be like having a half stroke, or I don't know if you've ever seen the Michael Phelps thing from 2008 Olympics where it's like inhuman how he wins the 100 butterfly final because there's one
I've
guy
not
that
seen that.
looks
No.
like the guys against glides into the wall, whereas Michael finishes on a full stroke and that's how he wins the race. Even
All
though
right.
when you're like when that guy starts gliding, you're like, there's no way Phelps is going to win this, and he
Hmm.
does. Like it's just insane. So I knew like I wasn't going to finish on that full stroke, and then I was like, it's going to be horrible. And then usually it's not that bad, but for some reason this time I was like, this is going to be a really, real. I don't know why I'd mucked up the count so badly. Um, but yeah, I knew this was going to be not
Oh,
not the best.
so when you're swimming that length, are you actually planning how much distance your strokes get you so that you do finish on that full stroke?
Mm,
Or is it a case of like sometimes it's just like a happy accident of I'm gonna finish this on a full stroke and have to glide?
for most world class butterflyers, they'll know exactly how many strokes they do. And
Wow.
for
So
me,
you're
like
almost
I
like
only
counting
know,
counting it down at that point. You're like, okay,
yeah. So
in the
they'll
water,
know.
out the
I don't know.
out, yeah, out the
Yeah, I
dive,
don't know.
15 strokes to go.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll count like whilst they're swimming, but for me, like I can't do that. It's really difficult to like
Yeah.
focus on doing that. Um, so the only way I know how many strokes I do is because the data scientist tells me after you did this many strokes. Like he'll send me a data sheet with like how many strokes I did, what my velocity was, all
Mhm.
this other data.
On a
Um,
completely nerdy level, I'd love to see one of these data sheets at one point. I reckon they'd be ridiculously
oh,
interesting.
they're so cool. And but yeah, like I'll know roughly because obviously you've got the flags that are 5 meters out,
Yeah.
and I'll know that if I hit them, like, so if my fingertips are at the flags, then I'll know I can get 2 like good full strokes in. If it's like a
Right.
half one,
Okay.
then I'll know I need 3. And that's something that the thousands and thousands of meters that you do across the year, like hundreds of thousand meters actually, but it's just like a habit that you get into. Um, and then when the only way to like fully practice it is when you're going like full speed in training, like trying to simulate that race finish.
Mhm.
And my even in training, it's like a learned habit. So if you're constantly messing it up in training, you're gonna mess it up in a race because your brain will just revert back to what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was more like you said, a happy accident. For me, it does feel like more a happy accident, which is not obviously what you want for a world class level.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I need to get better at making it a habit rather than just like fingers crossed it's going to work out. Kind of.
I love it. I know that's not how you think, but I love the thought of because you're what I love that you're saying there as well is like for world class athletes, and I'm like you're swimming in the Commonwealth Games, Gregor. You are a world class athlete, and then it's like,
Yeah.
but you're just like, oh, happy accident. And I'm like, I wish I could break world records at like or a Scottish record at a happy accident level.
See, the thing with that is like I feel so bad saying it, and like I don't want to sound like a big headed or whatever, but I still don't feel like that good because I look at the British record holder Ben Proud is literally one of the best fly swimmers in the world over the
Mm-hmm.
50, and his British record is still a second quicker than my Scottish record. So in my head, I'm like, I'm nowhere near the best yet because I've still got
Mm-hmm.
that step to go. So I think it is because I want to be the best. It's like, yeah, okay, it doesn't feel like an achievement to me because I've not got to where I want to be yet. Which
Mm-hmm.
sounds really bad, but I don't know. It just because I want to be better. It's like, and I think it's something I'll realize like after I stop swimming. Like, you know what, that's actually a really good achievement. And same with the medal from the Commonwealth Games in like
Mm-hmm.
20 years, however long. I'm not going to think back and be like, oh, I don't deserve that. All that I'm going to think is I've got a medal. Um, and that's what one of the other swimmers that had been to previous Commonwealth Games, he said he struggled with the same thing. And that now he just looks at it as I've got those 2 medals. He doesn't associate it with feelings, and it's just something that'll come with time. But I think at the minute, yeah, nothing's
Yeah.
good enough yet. So
But at the same time, I love that mentality of you're like, no, I'm not done yet. This isn't the end of it. Like this is only the beginning, which I really love. I think that's commendable, and I think, like you said, you spoke about Michael Phelps there. I imagine he probably, until he retired, felt the same way. He's like, well, he's probably got a net 30 kilograms of medals around his neck, and he's still pushing
yeah,
for the next one. But and I love, and I think so. I want to talk nice. This comes onto it as we just spoke about. We're not finished yet. You mentioned at the very start the one piece of memorabilia you want to add to your collection is definitely an Olympic medal. What does the future, so like the Gregor Swinney like next 5 year plan? I know you guys normally work in 4 year increments, but 5 year just it's a title. It sounds better. It's like, oh, my 5 year plan to turn my life around type thing. What's the plan looking for you like just now? So you've obviously just joined the Uni of Edinburgh swim team. It's like elite professional.
mm.
That's really going to help you raise your level just in like a mindset attitude. How's that going to affect you? What's that going to go? Where's next circled on the calendar for the big one? And how is this funneling into like the one peak, which I imagine is probably aiming for the Olympics?
uh, so like this, because I've changed coaches and it's like a completely different like coaching style, coaching philosophy. This season, I didn't really want to put much pressure on doing really well because I know like when you move coach, it can take time to adapt to how they want to work with you. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that being said, like because I'm a perfectionist, like I've still got targets that I want to hit this year. Um, but the main focus, like for my coach, is part of the Olympic trials next year. Try to get on the Paris Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, like either this year or next year, I want to get on to British funding, because British funding is kind of like a full-time salary. Like I could live off that comfortably. Um, so that would be the aim, so that I don't, so that then everything can be about swimming, and
Hmm.
I can just like focus. I don't have to like go to work half the week to live, and like that would be not make. Well, it would make life easier, like being a
Yeah.
full-time
It gives you
athlete.
it gives you time back that you didn't have.
Yeah,
I think that's what other people have said that I've learned of just having that time to even spreading your workouts a bit more out and just making things a bit better.
yeah, and like recovery as well. Like recovery is such a massive thing. Like I don't think people understand the importance of, like, you need to give your body time to recover and adapt to the changes that you're trying to make in training.
Hmm.
And if if you're working, like I know one of the boys I trained with in Glasgow, Craig Benson, he had a full-time job and he was only doing 4 sessions a week, and his aim, like that was his last competition that he wanted to do. So like try to get into the Commonwealth Games and having a full-time job, like I've got so much respect for that, because like I don't think I could do that. Um, so yeah, that would be my like personal goal. And then after that, like I said, when I first moved here, I sat down with my new coach and he's like, right, what do you want to do? And I was like, in 4 years, I want to be world champion or Commonwealth champion or both. Like that was my
Hmm.
like kind of 4 year target. And then my mid-term goal was to make a GB team in the next year, 2 years. So that's what the plan looks like.
Wow. I'm having so much fun. Like I'm so inspired. And then, so we spoke about Gregor the athlete, what his next plans are, and you've spoken a lot about, or a few times, when you get past, like when you decide to get out the pool for the last time. And then we spoke about how in the borders there's not really an elite swim team, but there was a lot of talent in the borders. So when you sort of finish up, have you ever thought about doing coaching? Because like I've said throughout this, you have a very good mindset for coaching. If you're very attuned to what's going on, but you also have a like you understand that sometimes the way you think about things isn't the healthiest,
Yeah.
but you have that drive and desire, and the only thing you want out of it is a better result and to get better. So in the future, have you ever thought about coming back to the borders and sort of trying to help the swimming scene grow in the borders, or is it the thing that's probably too far away for you? So I'm asking a 24-year-old what he's going to do when he's finished up. But I'm a
Yeah.
25-year-old. like, yeah, have you ever
Like that.
thought about coming back into the borders to just try and harness the talent there without having to send poor souls like yourself off to Selkirk at 4:15 in the morning?
Yeah. I mean, there is like that elite team in the borders, but
Mhm.
it's at such a disadvantage just because the logistics of it.
Yeah.
Like I know like Eyemouth and Duns aren't a part of it just because of how far they'd have to travel. It's just not feasible. Like you can't get the kids back to school in time.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I know swimmers at Peebles now, well, obviously the pool at Peebles burnt down, so they've not had a
Hmm.
pool. We shut all of COVID, then got somebody set fire to the plant room.
Hmm.
So they've not had a pool for the best part of like 3, 4 years, which is such a shame because not even just for like an elite level sport, just a life skill. Being able to swim is, I think, so critical that if you fall into a river, a lake, whatever, and you can't swim, there's a high chance that you're going to drown. And I think all kids, like that's why I think like in Peebles it was really good that you did swimming lessons with the schools, and then you
Hmm.
did swimming at high school as well, just to give people a chance to get that life skill. Um, but the one thing I'd like to do, just not even in the borders, just everywhere,
Hmm.
is to stop people being like me, or not to stop them being like me, but to help them to not be like me. Just because it's such a harsh way to live your life, being this black and white about failure, that
Hmm.
it's it's actually kind of holding. I've worked this out with my sports psychologist. It's holding me back. This idea that I have to be perfect, otherwise it's a failure. Um, and just helping kids to like actually enjoy swimming. It's not all about the accolades or like how far you go. Um, and like try to convince kids that like that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like that's the biggest thing. that I want people to know it as if someone like me that was not a good age group swimmer, like I see kids now and I speak to them and they're like, "Oh, you're so good." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're way better than I was at your age."
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what you're like now, just keep going and you'll get there, because I got there, and that's yeah.
Wow. Gregor, I'm ridiculously inspired. We're recording this at sometime on a Monday morning because I've taken the day off work to do this. I'm tempted to go out and probably run over every hill in the Borders right now. You've inspired me to run through a brick wall. So this has been absolutely brilliant for me. You spoke about there. We were talking about how, because you're now at the Uni of Edinburgh, and these opportunities are arriving for you to do masters in something if you want to do that alongside your training. Have you ever thought about going into sports psychology yourself?
Yeah, but I'd need to. But the funny thing is, so I did a business degree, and in second year, like I hated uni. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie, I hated it. Was not for
Join
me.
the club. Don't worry. I was only
Oh,
there because I
it's,
was
it's,
told I needed to go there by teachers. That's the only reason I was
yeah,
there.
that's what happened. Like I remember a guidance teacher saying, "This will be the best years of your life. You're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna have so much
Mm-hmm.
fun." No, did not happen that way. But anyway, in second year, I went and wanted to change to psychology,
Mm-hmm.
but they said you'd need to go back to first year, and I was like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to prolong this experience.
Another year is a dreadful
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
and I wish I did, because like I would love to. I find it so interesting how the human brain works,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to help people would be any job that I can do where I can help people is what I want to do. Just because I love it. I love being able to, if you've made somebody's day better, that's like the nicest feeling. Um, so yeah, I is like I do kind of wish that I had changed to psychology when I was finishing second year, but there you go.
I love that, and I've got another quote for you. Another quote which I lived by before the refuse to fail one really took a hold. Was I used to live by the motto of, if I've made somebody smile, I've had a good day, regardless of what else has gone on. So I don't know whether you want to take that one with you, but it's like it seems I've loved having this conversation with you, Greg. This has really been. I don't know whether it's because it's Monday morning and I'm a bit emotional on Monday morning, but I'm really enjoying it. Like, this has been truly eye opening to see how you tackle everything you do in life, and how, like you said, there's nobody with like a massive checkbook sort of pushing you through. This is like a very self funded. Like, if the passion wasn't there, this would not work. Like, this is due 110% to commitment. So
Yeah,
I think this is, and I think the listeners are really going to enjoy this. We're nearing the end of the show now, but like, I think you're going to change the world. I think you're going to have a long career in swimming. It shows just how to commit. Like, name another kid who's just going into high school. He's like 14 years old and he's getting up at 5 in the morning to have to drive 40 miles. Like, shout out to your mum and dad as well, because like, that can't
oh,
have been easy.
I know, yeah. Like that was one thing about it. Like I wanted to go, and
Mm-hmm.
it was more I wanted to go to the Commonwealth Games for them, because I wanted to
Yeah.
make it like worth it, that they'd put all this time, money, and effort in. I was like, I need to give them something, and I'll never be able to repay them for everything they've done for me. But like, I know that was the proudest moment, like seeing me there. Like they loved it, so that was at least something that I've given back to them. That can be like, hey, you're gonna have that memory for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What was that? What was that interact? Another. We're going back, but what was that interaction like? So obviously after the semi final in the 50. Like, and you're obviously you've just done the best media training anybody's ever seen of using every swear word in the human language
yeah, yeah.
towards every microphone. Did you then get to go see mum and dad quite quickly after that, or was there still COVID isolation protocols in place a wee bit?
No,
No,
it
it was
was pretty
free
like
for all.
chill. Yeah, so I can't remember if I went and saw them. I think I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just devastated. And they were obviously buzzing. They think, oh, they've just seen their son. And my girlfriend was there as well, like seeing
Mm-hmm.
that, the person you love in a Commonwealth Games semi final, like amazing. And I was miserable. So I feel quite bad for them that they had to put up with me being miserable because I didn't do as well as I wanted. But I was still like, gave them a hug, and it did make me feel better seeing them. But yeah, that was um that was hard. And then after, I can't remember. I saw them once the swimming finished, and then they had to come away back up home. So I didn't see them for like 2 weeks or something like that. But yeah, no, it was that definitely makes it the experience easier when you've got your family there supporting you. And just even seeing like all the other like Scottish fans, and like even I didn't think we were going to get as many cheers as we did from the English crowd, to be honest. Like I thought maybe it's just a Scottish thing that we wouldn't be as, cheery towards the English or whatever. But like hearing obviously the England swimmers got the loudest roar and that, but they were cheering on all the home nations, which was so nice. Like it was really, really good.
Wow, that's lovely to hear. And then something I've just came to my attention now. You mentioned the call room, and then like how that. So we don't get to see inside the call room we just get to see you guys come out, and I always admire the swimmers who come out with such a steely focus. Because obviously you come out with like big headphones on, swimming caps are already on, goggles are on. So like there is no giveaway in human emotion in the swimmers when they come out. So when you come out, do you come out not like wire focus, or are you sort of like you said you didn't really take as many moments in, but are you acknowledging what's around you as you come out to the pool, or are you I'm looking straight at my platform, I'm focused purely on the platform, I'm going to get the jacket and the trackies off, and I'm just focused on that swim?
I think there I was really focused. I just wanted to look as mean as possible. I don't know why. I just like to look as menacing as possible when I come out. But like being in the call room with like people you've looked up to all your life as the best fly swimmers in the world, and then to be in a lane next to them, I couldn't believe it. Like it was almost, I don't know. It was just that like I think the occasion just took me off guard, like because I'd grown up watching these guys at Olympics winning gold, like Chad Leclos, who was in the lane next to me, beat Michael Phelps in London, I think.
I remember watching
and
that
that
race
started
actually.
his career as one of the best fly swimmers in the world. And
He was like 17 at the time or something, was he not? And he was
I
like,
think so, yeah.
he was
Just a
like
young
6'8"
guy,
at the age of 15 or something.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, just incredible being next to these guys that you look up to so much.
In the call room, are you like as a Scotland collective, or is it like individual, or depending on what events are on that day, or is it like, are you still very much like a team in the call room?
So we had like every team had like a prep area where you did like stretching and stuff. Then once you go into the call room, you're like individual athletes, and you just
so there's like a separate, like the call room's like a middle intermediary between the.
And you're like no coaches are allowed in, like no only athletes are allowed in. So you go in, you get your cap and goggles and your trunks checked to make sure that they are like the stand, like you're not cheating basically.
Yeah.
And then you just have to sit and wait until you're called, and then you usually get at normal competitions it'll be like 3 or 4 heats. You get marshaled in advance, so like you'll be in your heat and then you walk out. But yeah, there it was like, I don't know, being like with those guys, it's quite intimidating. Like being in a room full of like world class, like the best of the best fly swimmers. Yeah.
Wow. And then lastly, what's your go-to music when you're in the call room? Are you like a hype music kind of person, or are you like a calm music?
So I actually listened to the same song on repeat.
Which song?
It's called "Numb" by Ryan Oakes. It's quite depressing, but I don't know why. It's not one that many people have heard of, but I don't know why. I just my go-to.
Just a mindset thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fair play. Right. Well, now that those two last points came to my mind, that's the end of the main body of this podcast. As I've said, Gregor, I've had such a fun time. So the only thing we need to end it off now is our final question. But before that, we get one where you get to have a bit of fun. We've learned a lot about you. Now we get to learn a lot about the rest of the team in the swim group. So this can be very similar to our quick fire question. It's just the first name that comes into your head, but it can be from Uni of Edinburgh swim team, it can be from the Uni of Glasgow swim team, it can be from the Scotland swim team. Basically, I'm just going to ask you a section, and you're going to go, which person is this? Which person does that resonate with? So this is a segment. It's called Under the Team Bus because we're throwing people under the bus. So it's creatively named. Right. First off, nice and easy. The most determined persons, like who's like the most focused on the swim team?
I'm gonna say boy I train with at Edinburgh, Stephen Clegg.
Fair enough. Who's the biggest practical joker? Who's the one that's like always just cracking jokes and being like, it's like 6 a.m. and this boy is like already happy and dancing?
Hands down, Ross Murdoch from the Scotland team. Yeah.
Right. Who's the most clumsy? Like, who's the one that's just always tripping over stuff, like in the changing room, like just constantly dropping his bag or his phone?
Uh, Probably me. I'm quite bad for being a bit clumsy.
Who's most up for a night out? Who's the one that's just like, we could just like karaoke, maybe not necessarily on the beers, but like we'll just go out and go on the beer or go on the karaoke or something.
Archie,
Archie,
good one.
fair enough. Who's got the worst fashion sense? Like who turns up and you're just like, did you get dressed in the dark and you got somebody else to pick the
Oh,
clothes out?
I don't know. I don't have much of a
You, you,
fashion
you,
sense, so like
you can't say you. I know where you work. You can't say you don't got fashion sense.
I didn't have any nice clothes till I started working there. To be fair, um, I don't know. I don't know.
I'll let you answer yourself as a cop out answer, but you only get to use that once.
I'll answer myself for that one because I have no idea.
Who's the most gullible? Like who's somebody you could convince that the word orange is written on the ceiling?
Katie Goodburn.
Right, who's the best dancer? Like when you're in, who after just in the changing room and the music comes on, they just have like a comfortable two-step shuffle.
Probably Ocean Cook.
Fair enough. And then vice versa, who's the worst dancer? Who's the person that looks like they're not in control of their own arms and legs?
Scott Quinn.
I love how quickly you're rattling some of these answers off. That means like these came straight into your brain. Who's the future coach? Who's somebody that when like you watch them like talk or passionate and you see like you think, oh, you could definitely end up a coach.
Mm, uh, I'll probably say Stephen Clegg again.
Fair. Who's hard as nails? Who's somebody you just look at and you just like reckon it's like if something ever went south in the pool, I'd be happy if you were stood behind me.
Tom Carswell.
Right. Who was the biggest freak athlete you've ever seen? Like somebody just like you've just got a motor on you, like you could swim for miles without stopping.
Oh, Katie Shanahan, hands down.
Really, just
Yeah,
engine.
she's an absolute. She was. Yeah, she's like. I think she's 18 now, and she's just
Right.
an absolute monster. Like,
In the
literally
nicest
can
way
do
possible,
anything.
you're an absolute monster.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to get a chat with Katie Shanahan. She sounds like an absolute riot. Who came in with the worst lockdown haircut? Like who came in and it's clearly either the missus or their mum had just had to go with a pair of clippers off eBay.
I mean, I know I've already said me, but I grew my hair out in lockdown, and I had like
Right.
hair bands, like it slicked back.
Nice.
So
I'll
I
find
even
I'll find a photo that I can post on the socials as this is going
I
out.
don't think there's any pictures of me like that. But yeah, that was awful. I don't know what I
Was it?
was thinking.
I suppose you don't have to go in the pool so that I can grow the hair out because obviously when you're getting in the pool, you lot are like pretty much hairless at that point.
Just when we race, yeah. But we'll all wear like a cap or something when we're training.
Mm-hmm. Right. And who has the best tunes? Like who do you kind of want to be on like the swimming pool speaker?
Uh, Katie Goodburn again.
Right. And the last one, who hogs the mirror the most after the event's done when you're all trying to like who basically prim and pampers himself the most?
Um, Archie.
There we
Archie
go.
Goodburn again.
Right. There you are. That's under the team bus. So if anybody has a question about what Gregor has said, I'm sure he'll be ready to answer all your questions on the text. And I go, I can't believe you said that about me. So now, final one, Gregor, before we get to go on our way, and I get to let you get back to your very, very busy lifestyle of training and being a world class athlete. You have just had the best race of your life. You've just had a great session with all the boys and the girls, the whole team. You've been tasked with getting 3 songs ready to get the team ready to celebrate the event, like the end of the Commonwealth or the end of the Olympics. What 3 songs are you picking and why?
Um, Not in any particular order,
Right,
but
okay.
Dancing with the Devil by, I say, Breaking Benjamin, I think. I only
Mm-hmm.
came across that recently. Really like it. Don't know why. Um, Probably Numb by Ryan Oakes. I know it's depressing, but my favourite song. And then another one that most people probably won't have heard of, it's called Paradise by Hilo. It's like a, I don't know, electronic like dance kind of song.
Right.
That'd be another one.
That's good. That sounds like you're getting a good contrast of emotions in there, but everybody's definitely going to be feeling something by the end of those 3 songs.
Yeah. That's a very
Amazing.
random mix, yeah.
That's what we want, though. We want like the eclectic mix. Well, all that's left to do now is say cheerio, and then Gregor, where can we all follow you on social media so we can keep up to date with your incredible story as it unfolds?
So just on Instagram, Gregor Swinney. I don't have Twitter or anything else. Just Instagram's the only
Just
one.
Instagram. No worries. That'll be in the link at the top of the description below. Gregor, like I said, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for coming on. To you, the audience, please like, share, subscribe. We're now on to season 3 of the podcast. Season 1 is the new rebrand, but what makes this grow and what allows me to get incredible people like Gregor on is hearing about this podcast, hearing about how it's done, hearing about the names. So I need you to like it. I need you to share. I need you to follow. I need you to do everything you can. There's probably some social media I've not heard of. I think Be Real's a thing at the moment. Take a photo of you listening to the podcast if you can. Love you all as always. I can't say enough, Gregor. Thank you so much for coming on. Folks, I'll see you again next week for another incredible episode. Thank you guys very much for listening. Goodbye.